It's not about eliminating things. It's about optimizing the process and then the people along the way and understanding when you're growing, who is this person? Why are they useful? And what can they do next? And so sometimes it's not just about costs, it's about the people along the way in the process.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Workergenix Mastermind podcast. Today we have a very special guest who is an expert in reducing business costs so that you can be more profitable, meaning take home more money. Erika is with Schooley Mitchell. She has years of experience working in marketing as an entrepreneur, even had a patent by age 21. So we're really excited to hear what she's got to say and learn some valuable tips on reducing expenses today. Erika,
Harley,
welcome.
thank you so much for having me.
Tell me about this patent you had when you were 21. I'm excited to hear about that.
So when I was 21, that was my first step, I guess you can say, to getting into business. And I read this book about just find things around the house that are a problem and solve it through patents. It's in the cosmetic industry, and I made a brush that essentially detaches. Because if you ever worked with a paintbrush, the glue always becomes unattached if used with water.
What was that process like? Did you have to file yourself? Did you turning?
That was an interesting process because I was 21 and I did not know anything. I did go to an attorney. So I went to a place here in Toronto where they work with patent offices all over Canada and the US. And certain people work with certain industries. And there was a lot of back and forth. I had to make a lot of changes. Took around like 5 years to finally get it in the US, and I'm actually still waiting for Canada to finally approve it.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more background on how you came to working as a consultant in, helping people reduce costs. Like, how did you come from patent inventor for cosmetics to business cost reduction expert?
So I've had a bit of a journey here. So 21, I created this patent, and there was a lot of back and forth, and I realized at the time I needed more help than I let on. And I think when you start an entrepreneurship business, your goal is to be the boss, not at the operation level. But I still had to figure out in certain ways how to do certain things or how to tell people, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. So I went back to marketing school, got my degree in marketing, put that on hold while the patent was still being filed and there was a lot of back and forth. Started an agency. At the time when I graduated, that was the peak of the pandemic. So it was really hard to get jobs. And I said, you know what? If I can't find a job, I'm going to create a job. Then within the marketing industry, I loved it. I used to sell marketing packages. I've done VA work. I did a bit of everything at the time. But one thing I realized is a lot of business owners, and I look at businesses like boats. There's a lot of holes in the boat. And there's certain ones that they don't understand that they have to clog up first before they get to the next one. And this is where you have the Titanic of businesses and 80% fail. So from there, I saw the need that, hey, in order for people to market, to get out there, they need money. And in a time like this, people don't have the money. Sometimes they don't even see the value. And when I got introduced to cost reduction space, I was like, this is a light bulb. Like, I need to do this because everyone needs this. This can help. You can go from 0 to 100. You can invest in other aspects of your business, or 150 businesses a day are going bankrupt here in Canada. If I can give you an extra 60K, that means that today, like, this family or this person is not on the street, or they have to make other arrangements.
That's powerful. So what are some of the tips or first steps when you start working with someone to help identify all those different holes on the Titanic, so to speak, and where to get started?
The biggest question I ask people is, where do you want to be? What is your goal in 5 years, 10 years? And what is your challenges? And that's when it becomes a therapy session and everything comes out. And what I end up finding is that the business owners are becoming business operators and not the CEO. And they're doing everything. And it's like, okay, stop. Within that, I'll say, hey, you know what? You need to do this and this. Or, you know what? Maybe you should go have a VA that does, some small things, marketing. You make those recommendations. But then after that, we get into, I just need to look at your bills. We're going to look at each item. We're going to see if we can find savings within your current vendors. If we can't, we go to our 3,700 that we have across the US and Canada, and we see if we can find you savings. Oftentimes, 80% will find you something. The other 20%, people are doing a great job. And if you're doing a great job, that's amazing.
Awesome. So someone has like a whole set of expenses, and do you ever find a situation where they just need to eliminate versus switch vendors, or how do you make that decision?
I don't like to eliminate things. I need to understand why they want to eliminate and why they need it. So I had a construction company that had 4 different phone lines. You don't need a phone for each and every project. You just need one phone, 4 lines, or if you want like your walkie-talkies, that's it. So it's not about eliminating things. It's about optimizing the process and then the people along the way. And understanding when you're growing, who is this person? Why are they useful? And what can they do next? And so sometimes it's not just about costs, it's about the people along the way in the process.
So let's talk about that process. Let's say you've gone, we've identified some expenses that maybe we can reduce. What kind of guidance or tips do you give people to stay on the right track and not fall back to the way they were before and having all these expenses drowning their business?
I would say look at each and every bill as if you're looking at your cell phone bill and understand each and every line item. And if you can't understand it, reach out to your vendor or your supplier and have them explain it to you. I cannot stress how many times people will get their merchant service bill and everyone says, you know what, I got to have a POS system. I have to, that's how people make payments. We're not in a cash society. And there'll be charges like a global fee. And if you're only doing business within your own country, that's already a fee that you can get rid of. Another big one is with telecom. So with my current phone bill, I went from $100 to $36. Now I'm just one person. So if you've got a team of 100 or even a team of 20 in a professional service office, that'll make a big difference at the end of the day. Maybe you don't need calling to Europe. Maybe, you know what, you can say, hey, we're going to use VoIP instead of doing a landline, for example. So it's understanding what it is that you're doing and each of those line items.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that you shared before that coming on the show was talking about strategies that can be used in times of crisis. Can you give me an example of what is a time of crisis in a business that you might be able to come in and assist with?
So I can assist with, I would say 12 different categories. We have merchant services, telecom, SaaS, ELD, waste, small package shipping. I can keep going on. But I would also say it's not even just in times of crisis. It's just, hey, maybe you're merging. Maybe you've got acquired. I can come in at pretty much any time, but when you're in a crisis, that's when you're going to see some of the biggest differences, because now I can come in and say, hey, Harley, here's $60K from all of these individual categories. And then when you're in a time of crisis and you're going lean, if I give you back that money, you have a couple different things. You have time back in your day, number one. Number two, you can reinvest that in other parts or in other people to help you run the business.
So talking about other people to help run the business, at what point or what kind of different responsibilities or roles do you often recommend people start letting go and delegating and finding those other people to help them?
I would say marketing is huge to delegating those tasks, and VAs are great for that. So when I first got started in my business, I was doing everything, and I would call my Saturdays social Saturdays. That was my day to do the marketing stuff. But that can only go on for so long. And as you grow, you have to let go. I would say when you get to the phase of, let's say, 5K a month, 10K a month, you'll be able to determine that yourself. That's one way. So when you're starting to generate that revenue, start saying to yourself, okay, what can I do now to get some help? The other piece I would say as well is, what is your opportunity cost? So if I'm running a business and I make $300 an hour, am I going to sit now on a Saturday and do my marketing? Absolutely not. I'm going to delegate that to somebody else. The other piece you need to realize too is, and this is something I learned when I was working on my patent, understand each area. So you have your HR, you have your finances, you have your marketing. Now, you're going to learn those areas, but you're not going to be an expert at it. But if you have a VA that's an expert in marketing, not only are you worth 300, they're going to be worth something else. They're going to be an addition to your business. They know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. And you have that expertise built in. And now you have more time on your hands. So I would say that's when you got to bring people in with those three things.
Love it. So when you're making that investment, what you're saying is like, don't view it as just like another business expense. They should be adding more value than their cost. So you should be getting a return on that, both in your time and in the finances in the business.
Exactly. And some people might not see that value in the beginning, but with time you will. And there's that transition of letting go. You got to let go.
What are some things you can share to help people with letting go of tasks? If you're used to spending your social Saturdays and then you now have someone who can do marketing for you, how do you like transition? I'm assuming you can't just like shut off on day one, be like, now you're doing everything, right? What does that transition look like?
Here's a bit of a backstory for you and something that I learned. You can't just automatically say to that VA, I need 10 social posts. Here's the audience. Here's what they look like. Here are the tools. What I recommend and what I've done is create a process and a system for them to be able to create, post, ask you questions. They're a flower. They're not a cactus. Give them as much information as possible right in the beginning to let them thrive. And when I first started, that's what I thought. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say, this is the task, go do it. But that was a huge mistake. And it's always good to sometimes do something once so that they understand your process. They might even make it better and say, hey, I know something else. Here's what we're going to do, and let them run with it. But if you just give them, hey, I need 10 posts, it's not going to be what you want.
One of the things we always recommend is the I do, we do, you do framework. So, you start out, you're doing it, right? I've got to figure this out first, or at least have a really clear idea of what I want. Then you set it up so that you can do it together. Maybe you're recording yourself doing it, letting them go over it, and then reviewing it, making sure everything's the way you like. And then it's the you do phase where it's completely handed off. They've mastered it because you set up the system for success with that investment of your time up front.
Exactly.
Erika, tell us a little bit more about this topic. What vendors aren't telling you and how you can save on the expenses? I know you mentioned some of those kind of like junk fees or things you may not be using. Are there other tips or ideas people can leverage to help, get the most out of what their vendors are offering?
I would say another big one where there's a lot of savings and they're not telling them information is waste management and shipping. So shipping is huge. And even if it's local, if you're going abroad, it's a whole area in itself that you need to understand how logistics work. So for example, you might be getting a better deal, but your shipping container it's in Brazil. It's not in the US, and that's where it's parked. And then if it's parked there, you got to pay a fee for like a warehousing fee. So shipping, there's a lot. They don't tell you about customs. They're not going to tell you about tariffs. Sometimes even like to get from point A to point B through a vessel, it takes more than 5 weeks. So if you're planning to, let's say, put something in a warehouse, you need to accommodate that. The other key piece is, and let's say Amazon Prime, right? If you get a package within 2 days, they essentially cover it. So it's the same thing with shipping companies. Some of them will say, if you don't get it in a certain time frame, you get money back, but they don't. That's something that you won't know just by going on the website and looking it up. Waste management is also very interesting because they'll quote you for, hey, I'm going to pick up a bin and this is how much it's going to cost. But throughout time, they like to put, there's no other way to say it. They're still, and not all of them, but there's still the Sopranos. They put in all these like little hidden fees that on the next delivery, it's something else. And that's also in the contract. But there's ways around the contract. But a lot of people don't know how to negotiate that, or they don't have the time to negotiate that. Those are some other examples. I would say merchant services is one of the biggest ones, especially with the interchange fee. You can negotiate that.
So, Erika, what does it look like for people that want to get started working with you? They want to, reduce their expenses. What do they need to do?
It's pretty simple. It's only 3 steps. So we get on a discovery call. I just need to understand the nature of your business. What are some expenses that we're looking at? What are some things that we can reduce? What are your current suppliers? We have what's called like a letter of authorization. 4 to 6 weeks later, we come back with what's called a value report. So within our team, we have 250 people working in different categories that find those deals, either within your current vendor or our 3,700. We present that value report. It'll show you the savings, and then it's you and your team, and you decide if you want those savings or you like what you have. But it's pretty simple. It's kind of like an accountant. You've given your paperwork and they file it for you.
Well, everyone, if you would like to get a free expense audit from Erika, I encourage you to connect with her. We'll have the link in the video description below. And definitely take a moment, gather your expenses, have Erika take a look at them. It's worth your time to get that free audit and see if you can save some money. Thank you so much for sharing these tips.
No, thank
today,
you for
Erika.
having me, Harley.